Welcome to the Aramaic Gospel channel. My name is Steve Conover, and happy Thanksgiving for those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving. If you don't, that's cool. I don't need these things. By the way, these are called aftershocks. They don't go in your ear. They vibrate the channel of your ear canal, and they're awesome. Anyway, what am I doing today? Thanksgiving edition of the Divine Feminine. So grab a cup of coffee and let's chat, shall we? This one's a little bit unusual, but I think it highlights something that I'm very, very thankful about. I'm even going to take these off so that until I get my podcast studio set up right. That glare is driving me crazy. Some of y'all might say I'm already there. That's okay. So what am I thankful for this Thanksgiving Day, and how does that have anything to do with the Divine Feminine? Well, the short answer is everything to do with the Divine Feminine. So I am thankful that our Father, Allah, the one and only being, about 5 years ago or so, started leading me in this direction. That all of the contrast in my life finally allowed me to throw my hands up in the air and say, I can't do it. And he said, you're right. And he's not a he, by the way. It's just talk about cultural programming. That's what that is, cultural programming. But over the last 5 years, seeking in the secret place, in the womb, darkness, where the new creation is birthed from, has me sitting here today doing a live stream about the Divine Feminine and being thankful. I can tell you that 20 years ago, as an evangelical Christian, this would have been so far out of the realm of my consciousness. But I'm thankful, and I don't need to do this podcast because of that. I do this podcast because as a teach learner, it's part of my process now. And I want you to think about, and as part of this process, and as part of being set free from external worship, I have discovered that our Father, the one and only being, Allah, is not going to ever roast you like a marshmallow. Specifically not eternally, because you violated the Nemosa. Now it's going to get good. Oh, see, every Sunday morning in buildings all across the world, there are preachers, evangelical types doing what they believe is the right thing, and they're on their ride, and that's all right. But what they're doing to you, if you go, and to everybody else, is no different than what the Pharisees did in John 8 with the adulterous woman. see what happens in that situation is everybody's herded into a room. They are proven to be guilty under the law. If you talk to any good evangelist, they'll tell you you have to convict everyone, right? Convict. Everybody has to be convicted to respond. That should be your first clue as to what's going on. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. It's part of the deal. It's part of the process. It's part of the evolution of the soul. But if this is currently rubbing you wrong, not vibrating with you, not resonating with you, if that idea that your Father, Heavenly Father, that created you in such a way where you would come to this incarnation and do something that, unless you responded in a proper way, would lead to eternal suffering. To most people, that doesn't resonate. Even ones sitting in church buildings. I was one of them. But I wasn't yet vibrationally to a point. I needed that contrast. And many people go through an entire incarnation in that contrast. So let's go to John 8. And the Pharisees throw a woman at the feet of Jesus. They literally throw her at the feet of Jesus. And say, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. And then they go on to say, the Mnemosa, the law of Moses, tells us to stone her to death. Now, mind you, the dude or dudes, which probably includes several of them, Pharisees, are not being included in the possible stoning to death. Because this is all about the feminine. And like my friend Carrie Husband says, if you're going to look at this in a purely literal sense, you're going to miss a lot. And if this scene sounds familiar, it should, because in Genesis, they do the same thing with Eve. Throw her at the feet of Elohim Yahweh and say, it's her fault. But in that myth, in that story, they both got kicked out of the garden. And if you missed my last podcast with Carrie, you need to go watch that and learn about the garden and what that was really all about. But what happened there is there was condemnation, right? Adam and Eve were condemned. For being disobedient to a law that they were given, that I would say was the first Mnemosa. Don't eat from that tree over there, because Allah told them they could eat from any tree. But let's go back to John 8. Let's go back to the feminine being the female, not the feminine, but it's representative of the divine feminine being subjugated and condemned. And this is really, really important to see. If you're a seeker and you want to make the divine feminine and the divine masculine, if you want to get rid of the toxic feminine, toxic masculine, and have balance between the divine feminine and divine masculine, this is important to see. If you're not able to see it, and if you're getting mad, it's not time, and that's cool. But just like when they threw Eve under the bus, here they're attempting to throw this so-called adulterous woman under the bus, and they're doing so in a way to entrap Jesus, Yeshua, Yeshu de Meshika. But unlike Adam in the Genesis story, this being takes him to task. And if this is the second Adam and the first Adam didn't do this, now just so you know, if you don't go watch my last podcast with Carrie, the Genesis story is all about transition from second to third density. But now we have the guy bringing fourth density consciousness to Earth for the first time, being confronted by the same issue. And his response to the Nemosa was quite different than Adam's. See, he didn't blame the woman. He wasn't about to be in the business of convicting the feminine. And he didn't do so. And they specifically said, Moses, the Nemosa, says to stone her. And Jesus bends down, starts writing something in the dirt. He could have been writing different forms of Nemosa in the dirt. And he actually bent down and wrote in the dirt twice. I think the second time he wrote the symbol that we call yin and yang, or a balance between masculine and feminine. But in the first time, he's writing in the dirt, and he stands up and looks at him and says, cool. Whichever one of you hasn't ever been guilty of violating the Nemosa, go ahead and throw the first stone at her. And then he bends back down, starts writing in dirt again. And then he looks up in a bit, and they're all gone. And he looks at the woman. Says, where are all your accusers? Where's your condemners? And she said, there isn't one. And Jesus said, neither do I. Then he said something that on my next podcast with Carrie, I'm going to bring up. We're going to really dig into in the Hebrew and Aramaic, because it's a lot deeper than go and be free of sin. Because that's John 8:11 and John 8:12. Everybody ignores John 8:12, but if you're curious as to the next statement Jesus says, I think you'll be very enlightened. Because if we think about all this from the lens of divine masculine and divine feminine, And when the two become one, your whole body is full of light. I want you to go read John 8:12, the very next thing that he says. And this is the book of John, by the way. Are you ready? Which was changed from the Gospel of the beloved apostle, Mary Magdalene. That's a fact, Jack. So that's all I got for you this morning on this Thanksgiving. I'm very thankful that this revelation, just like in the days of Noah, this revelation is coming upon earth like a flood. And Mama is bringing the divine feminine back into balance. And we're going to see that the contrast of that is going to manifest in a lot of different ways. And hopefully you don't find yourself in the place of the accusers. Hopefully you find yourself in the place of Ishu Mashika, simply loving what is, and say, go and be free of that state of consciousness. See, sin is a state of consciousness. Evil is a state of consciousness. It's called separation. You see, he told her, go be free from separation. He was telling the divine feminine, go and be free from that separation. Love you all. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving day. Until next time, peace out.